Hello and welcome to Coach's Decision, a weekly talk show that touches on sports from the Bay Area and beyond. My name is Thomas Todd. I'll be your host this evening. Joining me on the line, he's a man with a plan. I hope to see him on Friday night. It's Daniel Zarchi. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Good. Did you decide? Are we hooking up on Friday?
We'll see. You know how it is after a long week. Sometimes you just want to fall down.
Yeah, and that's the point. We're going to drink until we fall down.
We'll see. We'll talk about it.
Okay. All right, man. Well, we're also going to talk about a lot of stuff. NFL bombshells today, and then we're going to do an entire fleshed-out segment of baseball stuff.
I love baseball.
We love baseball stuff. You've seen Liar Liar, right?
Of course.
Yeah, that's the present he gets for his kid that he doesn't know he got because he's a terrible father. That's a running joke in my household. So we're going to talk about baseball. We're going to bring Tory on to do some Tory topics. Before we do, though, we're going to throw out some plugs. Danny and I have been hosting a weekly show about the San Francisco Giants called Giants Pod. You can find that on iTunes, the same place you can find Coach's Decision here. I'm on Twitter as Giants Todd. Danny is on Twitter at Giants Pod. Any other plugs you want to throw out?
No, it's a fun show. Come check it out if you're really into delving way too deeply into the Giants. Into
one particular team. Even if it's not that team, if you want to see two guys lose their minds about one team, please do that. Before we get kicked off with Josh Norman, we want to tell you about our presenting sponsor, SeatGeek. SeatGeek is a fantastic app and website that we have been using to go to games, to go to concerts, because they're no BS. The price you see on the screen is the price you pay. They show you big green dots for good deals and bad red dots for bad deals. It's a pretty easy one to use, Danny. When's the last time you've been to a hockey game?
Oh God, a couple of years ago. But I've been to a few good Sharks and Ducks games.
So the Sharks are in the playoffs.
And every time I've gone, the Sharks have won.
Good. Well, we got to get you out there for the April 24th game against the Kings because I'm looking around and there are some big fleshy green dots on my screen right now. There's actually not a red dot to be found, so there are some great tickets going for the Sharks and Kings series. Also, every NHL series, every NBA playoff series, all of Major League Baseball. This is actually the best time to get an app like SeatGeek and peruse and select and go to a few games, spend your tax return, whatever you need to do. This is the best way to do it. They aggregate tickets from other websites, so you're going to find the best deals. You're not going to miss anything. So thank you so much to SeatGeek. And, Danny, I can't wait to have some hockey analysis.
Well, and even if you're not going to a Giants game, type in SFG20 and get $20 off.
That is our promo code. You'll get a $20 rebate if you use our promo code SFG20 after your first purchase, so you have no excuses not to make at least one purchase on SeatGeek, and we promise you will be hooked after that. Now.
And, hey, I came in second in a fantasy hockey league last year, despite not watching a single hockey game.
Who was your best player?
Stamkos.
Okay. Nice. Who's your goalie?
Let's see. I had two. I took them in like the second and third rounds. I don't remember who they were, though.
So you're saying
Corey Perry, maybe?
That's a defenseman. You're saying go.
Okay, then not him.
Maybe Corey Crawford. You're saying go goal scorer, goalie is the strategy.
Yeah, and I think I took Verbata in the final round. He ended up being my second best player, something like that.
Okay.
These are all people who I've heard of just because I've read them. I have no idea. If you had asked me who the second best player was in hockey, I would have said, after Wayne Gretzky or something like that. I mean,
is Mark Messier still around?
Well, the only reason I heard of Connor McDavid is because I was in a class with a crazy hockey fan who wouldn't stop talking.
Wait, didn't Connor McDavid retire today? No, we know that's MMA star Conor McGregor.
Oh,
maybe we'll get to that. But right now, somebody is a free agent who the NFL was not expecting to be a free agent. It is star cornerback Josh Norman of the Carolina Panthers. It came down today that the Panthers could not reach a long-term deal. They weren't even close with Norman, and therefore they rescinded their franchise tag they placed on him, making him an immediate free agent. Danny, what the F?
Well, see, that's what I'm wondering about. Are the Panthers just conceding that they're not going to be competitive next year? I mean,
no, that's ridiculous.
Right, but even if you can't reach a long-term deal with him, it makes sense for them to keep him around. At a one-year contract would be a steal for a player of his caliber.
Yeah, I think the problem was he wasn't planning on showing up. I think that You know, in the NFL, there's a
so weird.
I know there's a long tradition of holdouts and people not showing up to camp for various reasons, but the players almost have no leverage, so the teams almost always win. The guy almost always comes back because he has to, tail between his legs, and plays for whatever deal he's given. But the Panthers just said, screw it.
And you also see a lot that, like, or at least in the 49ers case, that when the guy does eventually come back, they're not very good. You know, we saw it with Alex Boone, we saw it with Vernon Davis. I mean, there may have been other things going on, but going basically without a preseason, without, you know, team workouts can't be good. And trying to come back, like, the week before the season starts is just, does not bode well for this player.
What I don't understand is why he couldn't play out one more year, and then you can go make your big splash in free agency or work out a contract with the Panthers. Why did he have to be such a butt? And is this just Carolina calling? Is this just Carolina calling his bluff?
Because it's football, and you could die at any moment.
Well, come on, Danny. No one's died in the NFL in several years.
I mean, he gets his way. He's a free agent. He's going to sign a massive contract.
Yeah.
So why is Josh Norman? Why is this bad for him? It's not.
Well, nothing can be bad for Josh Norman. When you're one of the top 3 cornerbacks in the league, you're going to get paid. But I just don't understand wanting to leave a championship team. They just got to the Super Bowl. Why would you not want to have Cam Newton on the other side of the field be the other star player?
Because he wanted to get paid. I mean, because what you said, I mean, football contracts are so weird. The collective bargaining agreement and the football players union is so weak that the only way these players have any is by not showing up. You know, these contracts are non-guaranteed. I mean, most, unless that language is specifically included. So, you know, you can talk about a team loyalty all you want, but they get a lot of guaranteed money. You kind of have to take it because this isn't, you know, in baseball you can have a bad year and come back and still get paid pretty well. But at this moment, Josh Norman is the best defensive player, probably the best player, period, that's available right now. And he's going to get a massive contract, hopefully from the 49ers.
Well, they have lots of holes, and they also have lots of money, so that's a good point that you bring that up. Okay, well, we can kind of transition off of that. I think it's going to be interesting to see where he lands, especially with the draft looming. And we can talk about the top 2 teams in the draft trading out of their respective spots. The Tennessee Titans and the Cleveland Browns have now both decided to move down and pick up a massive number of picks from the LA Rams, who are now number 1, and the Philadelphia Eagles, who are now number 2. Now, the easy analysis on this is Mariota is a franchise player. You know, the Cleveland Browns need so many more things than a quarterback that they were willing to give up that slot to not take a quarterback and have 2 teams slide up that now need them. So it's Jared Goff and Carson Wentz in 1 or 2. Do you think these teams overpaid? Do you think it was a good move to try and get their franchise quarterback now? And how do you feel about the teams who are in the rest of the top 10 not being able to take the quarterback of their choice?
I mean, it's always hard to say with early round quarterbacks. I mean, they get talked up so much. You know, obviously there's been so much talk in the last couple, you know, months, whole year or 2 years about Carson Wentz and Jared Goff. And, you know, I liked the idea of Goff on the Niners, but at this price, who knows? But yeah, the question is, like, the LA Rams have kind of not had a good quarterback in a while.
Well, and they've seen the other side of this.
Kind of. They've literally not had a quarterback in a while, and they very famously passed on RG3 to, you know, basically make a lot of other parts of the team really good, but their offense is garbage. So maybe they are maybe it's the right way where you trade down, you know, load up in a lot of different places. You know, that defensive line is amazing. And then now they're going to use some of their wealth to get the offense that they didn't have. Maybe. I mean, it probably is an overpay, but then again, like, how do you value it? You value it based on what people were willing to give. The Browns, no one really knows because, you know, they traded down last year, or I guess the year before. I'm mixing up my years. They traded
the Sammy Watkins trade, where the Bills traded up with Sammy Watkins.
They traded to the Bills, and they ended up taking Johnny Football at the back end of the first round, but they also passed on a lot of really good players. I mean, they could have had Beckham, they could have had a lot of guys, but so that's an instance where getting that guy didn't really help anybody out. If Sammy Watkins is really good, but just because I guess what I'm trying to say is we don't really know how good these quarterbacks. Just because they're the two best quarterbacks in the draft doesn't mean that they're necessarily worth the first two picks.
But I think time. It was time for the Rams to push their chips in because they were on the other end of this. They got all those picks from Washington, watched RG3 flame out famously, built that defense, drafted Todd Gurley, which looks like a genius move, and now it's time to move to a new spot, to get a new fan base, and push your chips in and say, hey, we're one piece away from winning, and that piece is a quarterback. And now we're going to have, maybe not our top choice, but we're going to get one of the two-level quarterbacks, and that is a strata. That is the top strata of quarterbacks in this draft, is those two guys. They are neck and neck, and there is no one even close. You cannot talk me into Paxton Lynch or Christian Hackenberg or Connor Cook as being a viable top one or two selection or even a first-round pick unless you're really desperate for a quarterback. So I think it was the right move for L.A., and I think it was time.
I just mean that it's easy and fun to make the comparison of Andrew Luck, but I think these guys are not Andrew Luck.
Yeah, but
Andrew Luck was a once-in-a-generation talent.
Yeah,
so.
But you would settle for Teddy Bridgewater right now in one of those top two spots, just somebody who can competently look like there's a future.
Yeah.
I guess you're just hoping for
absolutely.
Not Tim Couch, not David Carr, not Ryan Leaf. That's more what you're hoping when you make a trade like this. But it didn't deplete their roster. It may have depleted some future draft capital, but I really like the move for the Rams. Not so sure about Philly. Just because moving up and not knowing which guy you're going to get, they must value them equally or close to equally, or know who the Rams are going to take in the top spot. So I don't really like the move as much for Philly. They didn't give up quite as much as the Los Angeles Rams. So we'll see. It's going to be a fun and interesting draft, and it's going to be interesting to see where most people have the top-rated player in the draft, the tackle, Laramie Tunsil. See where he goes, because somebody might get the best player in the draft at pick 3 or 4.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some speculation you might even drop to the Ravens at 6, I believe.
Oh, they would love that. Every other team in the NFL would hate that, but it would happen. All the teams that made the playoffs who have the late-round picks, just watching the Ravens snatch up an elite offensive lineman would just piss them off.
Yeah, I mean, and then when it comes to the Niners, that's where it gets really interesting. Of course, that's the angle I want to talk about.
Your team.
That's my team. Because I mean, there's basically a 0% chance that they get Jared Goff anymore. So, which, I'm happy with. I mean, I would have liked him more than not having him, but...
Well, you're still hoping for Kaepernick to have a renaissance.
I'm still hoping for Kaepernick to have a renaissance, I think that they can use their first-round pick to better effect. Right now, I mean, CBS Sports projects them to get Miles Jack. I don't really know. That's just the first link I clicked on. I mean, who do you think the Niners take at 7?
I'm not sure. There are so many holes in that roster right now. That roster got so depleted by retirements and free agency and basically just Jim Harbaugh leaving that they can go any number of ways. They can try and go for a wide receiver again. They have Laquan Treadwell will probably be on the board there. They can go for Jack, the middle linebacker. They probably won't draft a pass rusher, which is stinky because there's a couple of really good pass rushers in this draft. So... I agree with the Miles Jack thing because they do need linebacking.
Yeah, I think Miles Jack has a lot of injury concerns, but like NFL.com, the three guys there, Daniel Jeremiah, Charles Davis, and Charlie Casserly project Ronnie Stanley, DeForest Buckner, and Ronnie Stanley. So, there's a possibility, at least according to those guys, that they take a pass rusher.
Yeah, DeForest Buckner is an absolute monster, one of the rare guys to come out of Oregon on defense that actually shows some flashes of brilliance. So what are you hoping? What's going to make you golf clap on draft day when the Niners draft?
I think they just need an offensive line, Like, their defense at times actually looked good last year. I mean, it was mostly at home, and when the moon was full, but there were flashes of looking good, whereas the offense and the offensive line were just garbage. It was full of holes. It was the quarterback whose name I've blessedly forgotten.
Blaine
Gabbert.
The Blaine train. You're on the Blaine train. You're off the Blaine train. You're way off the Blaine train.
I've never been on the Blaine train. I think that when you saw Kaepernick playing really, really badly last year, it was mostly a result of A, a shoulder injury that nobody knew about, and B, the fact that he was he'd get the ball snapped to him and he'd turn and run away from the guys who were coming at him unimpeded. So, I think if they can kind of get those fundamental things down, get Kaepernick a little space in the pocket, then they can kind of build from there. And I don't know if this is actually true, but it seems like if you're not talking about like a generational talent at wide receiver, that you can find really good players in the second round. So, maybe spending a few picks a little bit later on a really good receiver, something like that.
Which they have not been able to draft.
Definitely a need for them.
Ever. They've never been able to draft a wide. Terrell Owens was probably the last capable Crabtree, I guess. But he didn't even stay.
Yeah.
What do you think about your boy Joe Staley saying he doesn't want to play for a rebuilding team?
Too bad, Joe. I mean,
you still get to keep the money.
Yeah, I certainly understand his frustration, and if I've yelled on this show several times about how frustrating this team is. And
you yell on this show? I thought I did all the yelling.
Well, I think we're going to see it again when they go into the off season and Josh Norman is available and we have the money and they're just going to not spend it. I mean, I don't think there's a realistic chance the Niners actually sign him, even though it makes absolute perfect sense because that's an area of need and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I can understand from his perspective if he's not feeling the organizational support. But, sorry. We're trying, and a team that's rebuilding needs a guy like him. So it'll rebuild faster with him. But until then, I'm sorry, and thanks for all the fish.
What does your Niners-Giants Twitter feed look like right now with the possibility of Josh Norman lurking out there? Because I know whenever you have fan Twitter, it's like, oh, well, we're going to get this guy. Why shouldn't we get this guy? Trade for Mike Trout. We should get Mike Trout.
Yeah, I think we're trying to trade Avery Adrianza for Mike Trout right now.
Yeah, working on it. Okay, well, we're going to cover one more story in our opening here, and it's another team that we both root for, or I guess a team that we both root for instead of just you. The Golden State Warriors, because they have an interesting dilemma. They're up 2-0 over the Houston Rockets, headed to Houston for Game 3 tomorrow night. And Steph Curry has what I would simply call a bum ankle. He doesn't have an injured ankle. He doesn't have a torn Achilles or a ruptured tendon, or Tory can fill us in on what can actually happen to your ankle in a pinch. But should he keep resting until the Warriors lose? Should he sit out the whole series? What would you do if you were Steve Kerr?
I would put him back in when he feels like he can play, like when the risk of re-injury is lower.
Well, he always feels like he can play. He was ready to go back into Game 1.
Well, that's why you need somebody else to be the adult and say no.
And that's why I'm making you the adult. I know that's a bad decision, but I'm making you the adult in this situation.
I would test it out and see how it's doing. I mean, and if there's any chance that he's not feeling it, then keep him out again. But I think they made the absolute right choice in not playing him on Monday, and the team was able to win handily without him. I mean, that was in Oakland, so it'll be a little bit harder in Houston, but I still don't think it's going to be that hard.
Okay. Tori's in here now. She's going to tell us about the ankle, Danny. I want you to get some feedback from our producer and skeletal biologist, Victoria Feeney, so that you can make an informed decision. So go ahead, Tori.
I'm sorry, only one of us is a doctor.
Oh, please.
Oh,
Esquire.
Fighting words. There's actually video of Steph at practice before Game 2. He takes a pass, goes to shoot for a 3, steps on his ankle, immediately stops, bounces a little, and you can see his face fall as he realizes he's not ready.
So,
yeah,
Danny,
so as long as that keeps happening, don't let him play.
what happens if Houston wins the next 2 games?
Well, then you put him back in. I mean,
Okay, I just want to see what your breaking point is for how much risk you're willing to take with such a star player set to make, title runs the next couple of years. How much are you willing to invest in this year's playoffs?
no, I mean, I think that you, at least for Game 3, you test him out tomorrow and see how he's doing. And if he has another one of those moments or he has something close to it, then you sit out again and hope that he'll be ready for Game 4. And you kind of do that over and over again. But are you saying at what point do you put in a guy even though he's visibly injured?
Yeah. You don't? You're saying you don't?
Yeah, you don't.
I guess if it went to Game 7 in Oracle, maybe even Game 6. If it's Game 6, the Warriors are up 3-2, I might put Curry in no matter what for 20 minutes. Just to try to get as much as I could out of him, maybe use him as a decoy on a lot of sets. But you're right. You don't want to play with fire, especially when you've got the Spurs looming, maybe even the Clippers looming. This could be a tough playoffs if he can't stay healthy. But if they get that sweep, Sunday in Houston, they're going to have probably a full week off, and he's got to be good to go after that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you do everything you can to have him not play. You definitely go into Game 3 unless he's perfect, unless he's just playing like nothing ever happened. You hold him out of Game 3, and I honestly just think they could win. I don't think this is a good team, the Rockets, and they certainly handled them at home. So, I think you're going to see a lot of guys doing a lot of things. I mean, you had 5 Warriors and double-digit points. Like, that's how you beat them if you don't have Steph.
Yeah, this is why the 1 seed was so important because, having the 2 seed, I guess you get to the good fortune of playing the Grizzlies, which was great this year because they built up a good record and then all their players went away. But this is why you want to finish with a high seed because if Steph Curry's out and they're playing someone like Portland right now, that's a troublesome series. But you get the team. Or Utah. You get the trouble team. If they make
things had gone differently at the end of the season?
Yeah, of course, but you get the troubled team who gets down 10 points, and they start chirping at each other, and all of a sudden they're falling apart. Dwight Howard's picking up fouls and smiling, flashing those pearly whites, which is always a good sign when you're playing against Dwight Howard. Whenever he's smiling, it means he's losing. And that's what's happening. They go down 10 points, and they absolutely fall apart. So they're very fortunate to be playing a Houston team right now that's not playing its best basketball, whereas maybe if the Jazz had come through and made the playoffs, they could have at least put up a fight sans Curry. So the Warriors very lucky and very good on them to win as many games as they did to get that top spot. Okay, we're going to go to a sponsorship break and come back. We're going to do all the baseball that's fit to talk about on the air. But first, we're going to tell you about Fanatics.com and FansEdge.com, a couple of sites we've been partnering with. They are sports merchandise websites. I'm watching a pair of Giants fans hit large foam knuckles against each other on television, and it's ridiculous. But you can buy all kinds of sports merchandise like that, jerseys, shirts, hats. I think I need some new gym shorts. They should probably be San Francisco Giants themed. So go on those websites, Fanatics.com and FansEdge.com. But first, go to our website, Coach's Decision, KSCO.com, and click through so they can send us some of those sponsorship dollars after your purchase. So once again, go to Coach's Decision, KSCO.com, click through the links for Fanatics.com and FansEdge.com and buy some awesome sports merchandise, 20, 30, even 40% off retail price. That is your place to go. Danny, let me tell you about a 260-pound bag of potatoes named Pablo Sandoval.
I guess this technically is a baseball story, huh?
This man is such a burden on the Boston Red Sox right now that I don't think they created his shoulder injury out of nothing, but I will say that they put him on the DL without so much as an MRI, which is pretty unheard of.
I think what's more likely is that he invented the shoulder injury out of nothing.
Because he ate a lamb shoulder?
No, because he lied about being in pain. I mean, I don't know. This was such a weird story because, he didn't say, oh, great, and put him on the DL. I don't think there was any malfeasance on their part, but they sent him to Dr. James Andrews, and he says, you're fine. And actually, this is a quote from RedSox.com, quoting quoting John Farrell, he was given an ejection to calm the inflammation down. So there's just a lot going on here.
I mean, he needs an injection of knowledge about how to eat, how to exercise, how to stay fit. I've been reading articles from his former trainer saying, man, this guy's always had a problem. You know, when I was working with him, it wasn't that bad. He had his best seasons, but he really just can't keep his eating in control. It's not even the exercising.
And there was a story that when he was on the Giants and they went on the road, the Giants told the team hotel not to bring room service to him, that if he called down for food, to turn him down.
I wouldn't do that to a 10-year-old child.
There's also a quote from his trainer. That Pablo went to Venezuela, and I think he gained 21 pounds in 21 days.
That you have to try to do that.
I mean, that's like 5,000 calories a day, which, you know, is possible. I could do it.
Yep. Oh, we've both done it. We didn't also sign 5-year, $90+ million or 85, whatever it was, $1 billion contracts.
Right. I mean, I'm also 7 inches taller than Pablo and the same weight.
That's true.
So, and I'm not a thin man. So.
Oh, Danny, I'm so happy he's not on the Giants. I'm so happy we don't have to deal with this crap anymore.
This is a heel turn of the ages. I mean, this is like almost Brian Wilson status to go from beloved / feared to just, oh my God, get away from me. Or get away from my team.
How much is Big Papi hating all of this? It's Big Papi's last season, and he's being literally overshadowed by a giant shadow at third base.
I don't really much care what Big Papi thinks. I mean, I like him as a player, but I don't like this whole what do you call it?
Farewell tour.
Farewell tour. It's just it feels anti-baseball.
Well, at least in sports, the farewell tour actually means that, you know, with rock bands, it's like, you know, they'll be back in 6 years to cash in again. Yeah. At least they mean it.
I mean, also for Ortiz, unlike Jeter, he was actually a good player during his final season.
Ouch, Danny. You're talking about a guy who doesn't play defense, so I don't really know if Derek Jeter's going to accept that as your premise of your argument.
I'm sorry, you want to talk about defense and Jeter?
No, I want to talk about how he was at least out there every day playing a real game of baseball, not taking 4 swings a day and calling it a career.
I really want to know if, like, from a statistical standpoint, is there any argument to be had that a designated hitter is more valuable than a guy who plays horrible defense? Like, I know you're out there, I know you're trying, or at least pretending to, you know, bring a mid out with you. But, like, is there something to be said for a guy who admits, I can't do this, put in someone, you know, would you rather have David Ortiz plus Brendan Ryan, or would you rather have Derek Jeter?
I'd probably have Brendan Ryan plus David Ortiz, and this is why I hate the designated hitter. And like Donald Trump's upcoming election, just something that's inevitably going to happen to America.
No, it's not. It's not.
You're not a Trump believer or a DH believer? I think they go hand in hand.
Neither one.
I don't think you can have one without the other. I don't think we get Donald Trump unless we already have the NL designated hitter.
Yeah. One of the better stories of the day, actually, a bunch of GOP politicians were asked who should be placed on the $10 bill because Harriet Tubman is going to be put on it. Mm-hmm. And I really want to find this, but it's phenomenal who some of these people chose, and I'm pretty sure that Donald Trump's answer was that it should be his daughter.
Oh, obviously. Okay, Ivanka, the great socialite. Okay. Why don't we just put Kim Kardashian's butt on it? Why don't we just put Kim Kardashian's butt cheeks on the $10 bill?
They can put it on the penny, and then people might actually want them.
Dang, Danny.
My personal favorite was Jeb Bush recommended Margaret Thatcher to be put on the $10 bill, which demonstrates an interesting belief in what country she's from.
She's not from. That's a real thing, Margaret Thatcher.
This is a real thing, yeah.
Was he want the Queen on our money next to a little Union Jack up in the top left corner?
Yeah, welcome to the Commonwealth. Here's the full list. Rand Paul says Susan B. Anthony. Good answer.
Fair. She had her shot on money, though. Okay.
Mike Huckabee says Mrs. Huckabee, his wife.
Okay.
Marco Rubio, Rosa Parks. It's a good answer.
Mm-hmm.
Ted Cruz also says Rosa Parks, but he says put her on the 20, keep Hamilton on the 10.
Oh, he's seen the Broadway play, so.
Ben Carson says his mother, but that's just because he couldn't think of a famous woman.
Oh, dang. Dang, Danny. Why do you get to make jokes, but I don't?
Actually, to correct what I said earlier, Donald Trump's real answer was his daughter or Rosa Parks.
Oh.
Jeb Bush, Margaret Thatcher, Scott Walker, Clara Barton.
Ivanka Trump or Rosa Parks, whichever would be a good decision.
Fiorina says nobody, or don't change it.
Oh, okay. Nobody. It's an empty portrait.
Cases says Mother Teresa.
Okay. Another foreigner.
Also not an American.
Another foreigner, yeah.
And Chris Christie says Abigail Adams. So, you know.
I could make an argument for Dolly Madison. I mean, we don't have that portrait of George Washington if she doesn't carry it out of the house, White House on horseback.
So that was an interesting list. I mean, it's under my personal credo of everything in sports, but not technically.
Did you actually hear Derek Jeter had a response to that?
No, I didn't.
It was a muffin basket he wants on the $10 bill.
So anyway, where were we? Baseball.
Back to baseball.
Pablo Sandoval, David Ortiz, designated hitters.
Big potato, and Big Papi. We're going to move on from that story because I just wanted to have a laugh about that, and we had our laugh. Let's get into some real analysis. There are two teams in the National League really separating themselves from the rest of the field. I'm sad to say it's not our San Francisco Giants, who have lost 6 of 7. It's the Cubs and the Nationals, two teams that came in with a lot of hype, especially the Cubs, but have delivered. They stand atop their divisions. They have gaudy records. They have gaudy offensive numbers, good pitching. Where do you stand on these two teams? Who do you think is the favorite right now?
Just between those two?
Just between those two. Who looks like the team that you're going to see in October based on what you've seen the first 2.5 weeks? Big sigh.
I mean, I think they're both very easily projectable as playoff teams. I mean, even though I think you and I both picked the Mets to win the East, the Nationals were kind of 1B.
If they stayed, it was the Nationals if they stayed healthy.
Yeah, I think the Nationals are kind of better built for a playoff run just because their big three with the pitching staff is, I think, a lot better than the Cubs. I mean, the Cubs do have really good high-end pitching talent, but even so, Scherzer, Strasburg, and
Gio.
Yeah, okay, well, their big two are really good. And with the Cubs, I mean, they've got Lester. And
who can't throw to first base? Who can't throw to first base?
That is my favorite story in sports. John Lester cannot throw to first base, or any base for that matter. There was a play the other day, really good start. I mean, this would make sense if he were like Steve Blass or something like that. But he just has the yips when it comes to throwing to first. And so there's like a bunt or a swinging bunt right in front of the pitcher, and he grabs it and throws like a 6-hopper to first base and gets the runner. But what is going on?
He spiked it into the ground like he was John Henry driving a stake into the railroad. It was ridiculous, and he won't throw over when there's runners on. He can't hold runners on. And was he left-handed?
No.
Okay, he's right-handed. Thank goodness. If he was left-handed, this conversation would be over. But yeah, we can talk about which pitching staff is better, but I think it's the fact that...
Oh, I forgot Jake Arrieta. That's not good.
Yeah, that was not good on you. To say the big three is better than the big two when there really isn't a big three in Washington. But that's all forgiven because I think the real story will be Kyle Schwarber's gone for the year most likely. Can they replace that bat in the lineup? I think that they have enough young talent. They'll still be a nice offense, and having those two big pitchers, I just think they're going to be healthier. And I don't want to be the guy who tries to predict health, but the Nationals are going to fall apart because they have guys that just do not stay on the field.
I mean, like who?
Anthony Rendon, Zimmerman. I mean, Strasburg is always a risk to be taken off, or just be bad. They call him a warm weather pitcher.
I don't know. I think Strasburg has Cy Youngs in his future. I think I think if you look at last year, which was kind of his first real bad year, he was hurt for all of his bad starts, and then when he went on the DL and came back, he was like had a sub 1.5 ERA or something like that. I think if you look at the offense, like you're absolutely right that a bunch of those guys are not all that reliable, but they also have Bryce Harper, and he's hyperbole aside, he's just really, really good.
He's keeping it 100.
And we talked about the guys who we were worried about, and some of them not having a great year so far. They're still starting like Bel Montero and moving around players unproven. The Cubs are counting part of they're doing so well. Dexter Fowler, who was not kind of projected to be in one of their top players. So how are they going to? I mean, if Jake Arrieta has a sub-1 ERA for the year, then they're going to do great. But both teams would need a lot of things to go right to keep on a really good pace. And I think that, as a really obvious statement, they're not going to win two-thirds of their game anymore, and it's going to come down. They're going to come down to earth. The Mets are going to close the gap. The Cardinals and Pirates are going to close the gap. But I don't want to pick between the two. I think they're both really impressive.
Okay, well, our KSCO Liveline connection is pretty bad, so I caught most of that. I caught your point about Dexter Fowler, who I was on Fangraphs today, and the leader in wins above replacement in all of Major League Baseball is Dexter Fowler. And he was a guy that was on his way out. He was working a deal with Baltimore and then decided on a whim to nix those talks and just come back to the Cubs. And somebody who had a similar idea was Jason Hayward, who decided to bail on the best organization in baseball, the St. Louis Cardinals, and jump on the Cubs.
The self-declared best organization in baseball.
I'm not going to argue with them too much. They're in the playoffs every year. They made a bunch of NLCSs. They have a consistent team, more so than anybody else that I've seen in the last decade, especially with the Red Sox falling off the last couple of years. But Jason Hayward says he'd rather be on the Cubs because he'd rather grow up with a bunch of guys and make them family and be able to cherish that without feeling like I had to restart. The Cardinals have to be furious about that quote, right? His teammates?
Well, sure. But you also, if you read a little bit more into that story, he's not talking about age. He's talking about contracts. He said this, that, the core of that team are, Yadi Molina and Adam Wainwright and a bunch of guys who, Matt Holliday, who are not going to be here next year or the year after that or the year after that. And, he's going to be the guy. It's going to be like him and then a bunch of kind of unproven talent. And as much as you think that Grichuk and Piscotty and Hazelbaker, who's apparently a real baseball player.
No, you made him up. You made him up.
No, I think after the show we should all go out for some Hazelbaker Piscotties. That sounds really good.
Yeah, that's at the New Delhi downtown, right?
But and he was talking about when he was on the Braves, the team he came up with. He loved growing up with those guys for like 2 years, and then everybody left, and they did restart, and he didn't want to repeat that experience. So I think you hear a little bit more about it, and it becomes a little bit more understandable. If you're the best fans in baseball, then obviously you're going to be upset by that because, and I think this is a real quote, why wouldn't he want to be in baseball heaven? But
when has Chicago been baseball heaven? When in the last
St. Louis.
Oh, I was going to say, oh my goodness, when in the last 100 years has that been baseball heaven? Your Sox are good though, Danny. I'm making them your Chicago White Sox now.
Yeah, I thought they would be good, and they've been good. They've got one of the best pitchers in baseball, in Chris Sale. They've got a much better offense than they did last year. Even though a lot of them are not really playing all that well, but they are leading their division, and they have a 10-5 record. And Matt Latos a good pitcher again, apparently. So
Yeah, that's weird.
Surprising.
That's not going to hold.
That's
That can't
weird.
hold up. That can't hold up.
I don't feel comfortable living in a world where Matt Latos is good.
I'm already on my mission to Mars planned because I can't live on a planet where he has a sub-2 or sub-1 ERA.
Yeah. So I still think they're going to be good, and I think that a lot of the other teams in that division got dramatically overhyped. But I don't know how much faith I have in them to keep it up. I mean, I'm happy with it so far, but we'll see.
One more question for you before we get to Tory topics. Who is the best pitcher on the New York Mets? Because I think the answer changes on an almost weekly basis, but I think I have the answer. Who do you think it is?
I mean, right now it's Noah Syndergaard, and
Oh
it's
my
not particularly close.
Goodness, is he mowing people down?
He's like averaging 100 on his fastball and 95 on his slider.
He is throwing.
Who can hit a 95-mile-per-hour slider?
He's averaging double-digit strikeouts in his game so far this season. What an incredible start.
I mean, maybe this is oversimplifying, and I love to do that, but we've seen it enough with our superstar pitchers who have come up through the Giants. I just don't trust a pitcher that relies on velocity. I mean, is that oversimplifying? Like, you obviously saw Lincecum with a blazing fastball. You've seen Kane drop. He was throwing 95 when he came up, and they just everybody loses their velocity.
You're wrong, Danny, and I'm going to say Randy Johnson. This guy could be Randy Johnson.
Okay, that's fair.
If you're going to have a 95-mile-an-hour wipeout slider and a high 90s fastball, and you're that height, and you can release from that arm angle, you might be Randy Johnson.
I'm that height?
You're not that height. You're not that height, Danny. You're height. You're not that height. All right, well, we're both going to say he's like 6'10".
Oh, okay, I'm not that.
Yeah, no, he's just like a hair shorter than Johnson. I think Johnson was a full 6'11". Okay, we're going to break from baseball and go to our last sponsorship break. It's 99 Bottles, located in downtown Santa Cruz, here where I sit in Santa Cruz County. It's your premier dining and drinking destination in downtown. It's centrally located on Walnut Avenue between Pacific and Cedar. You really can't have a more fun and diverse time. You can watch sports. You can hang out. Wednesday nights, they've got trivia. They've got beer specials, happy hour. Literally over 100 choices of alcoholic beverages to intake. Danny, what have you been drinking lately?
Let's see. I got some Elijah Craig bourbon. That's pretty good.
They've got bourbon. Okay. What kind of beer have you been drinking?
Fat Tire. I'm going through an amber phase.
Oh, gross. Oh, well, they've got that too. If you want to be like Danny and drink Fat Tire, they have that at 99 Bottles. I'm going to have a nice IPA, because that's how I roll. Danny thinks that's gross. But either way, if we're going to enjoy a brew together, we would do it at 99 Bottles in downtown Santa Cruz. Actually, Victoria, you're back on the line. You were just at 99.
I was.
Fantastic time?
Fantastic time.
What did you have?
I was drinking alcoholic ginger beer.
Oh, gross. You guys are so gross. Who do I associate with on this show? Well, I'm going to go down there and I'm having a good drink. Thank you to 99 Bottles so much. Now it's time, as everyone knows, for our producer, Tory, to come on and tell us what weird is happening in the sports world.
This song was playing at work today, and everyone was making jokes. They're like, "It's your song, Tory." I was like, "Yeah, I know it's my song."
All right, Tory, what do you got for Danny and I today?
I've got breaking news on playoff injury reports.
Breaking news? We don't break news on this show.
Atlanta's Harry the Hawk takes a groin-first tumble into the stands, listed as questionable for games 3 and 4.
A groin-first tumble? Did he hit his...
He, was doing a little stunt where he was jumping across the stands, and his leg slipped out from him, and he went groin first.
I saw that.
On a pole or on a seat?
On, a little barrier between the front, front court seats. I just totally blanked on words. I'm so sleepy.
So, Harry the Hawk.
Harry the Hawk, the Atlanta Hawks mascot. He was doing a little thing. It was in the game. You can see it in the background or in the foreground of a shot that's going on during the game. There's a little barrier between the first 2 rows and rows 3 and 4, and he's walking across it like a tightrope or a balance beam.
So I'm going to ruffle some feathers with this, but I think the Celtics are now circling and looking to dive. and take out Harry the Hawk once and for all, because mascots should all go away. Basketball teams do not need mascots.
Atlanta even did a silly YouTube video of Harry the Hawk in a doctor's office getting examined and being listed as questionable.
Do you when you injure your groinal region, is there any reason to go to the doctor? Can they set it?
Well, it depends on what you're doing. Like sometimes oh God, what is it? You can pop a testicle back up.
Back up?
And they have to pull it down.
No.
Yeah.
We're not talking about this.
I can't go through puberty again. All right, next topic.
All right. Le'Veon Bell tweets, "Of course I get a random drug twist on 420. Good luck with that sample."
Danny, you and I went to the University of California at Santa Cruz, also known
I went there too.
as Uncle Charlie's summer camp. Tory claims to have gone there. I never saw her there my entire time. Did you enjoy the 420 festivities? Were you ever at the Porter Meadow for those?
I went once and it was awful.
What? Explain to the people who haven't gone to UCSC and don't know what Porter Meadow is. What happens on 420?
A lot of people smoke a lot of weed, and at 4:20 p.m., there's just this giant plume, mushroom cloud-looking thing that rises above the crowd, and it's not good. I mean, I didn't like it. Did you like it?
I never went. I am so anti the subculture of marijuana. You have no idea how much I cannot stand Bob Marley posters, pot leaf socks and hats, and all this crap. I'm not actually against the use of marijuana for medicinal or recreational purposes. I hate the entire subculture of it, and so I could never bring myself to go to that. I looked at the pictures, and I went, thank goodness I stayed home. And I looked at the pictures, and guess who I saw? Your head standing above everyone else's in the cloud, because you're 4 inches taller than everybody there.
Really?
Boom,
no, I never
roasted.
saw it. I'm just picturing it.
Okay, good.
Just picture you getting the most high because you have the cloud just zooming up your nostrils. All right, Le'Veon Bell, don't do drugs. Play football. We want to see you play football. No one wants to see you take drugs.
All right, Giants fans.
We're here.
You guys saw the video of the guy catching the fair ball.
Yeah.
And his girlfriend with her head in her hands.
Smart
this was the best thing. I was at that game.
My favorite part is that he escorts him out before he's ejected because he already knows it's happening.
He just leaves voluntarily.
He's grabbing his stuff. They go and give him the symbol, and he's like, I know.
Danny,
what would you do in that situation?
Danny, what do you do in this situation? You were there.
Well, so here's what happened. The ball goes over to the side. This guy reaches down and grabs it. The third baseman runs over saying, "Why'd you pick up the live ball?" And the guy has the most comical Hollywood change from elated to crestfallen.
You can pinpoint it.
Yeah, it's like Simpsons, a moment when his heart breaks. And you see next to him his girlfriend or female companion just immediately buries her face in her hands and pulls her hood over her head and pretends that she's not there. And then as he gets up and walks out, she just pulls everything down so you can't see who she is. She knows that her boyfriend or male friend has violated the cardinal rule of sportsdom, and it's one of the greatest things that I've seen.
How many times has West Coast Fangirl had to put on her hood and bury her face with you at a baseball game?
Never. Thank you very much.
Okay. Not breaking any cardinal rules? Not getting thrown out?
No.
Not trying to talk.
Good. I know.
Not trying to talk to Willie McCovey. Trying to talk to Willie McCovey for no reason.
Well, did you bury your head in your hands when that happened?
I did. I absolutely did.
Exactly.
All right, Tory.
New video featuring Kyle Lowry and DeMar Rosen called "Will It Swish?"
DeMar DeRozan.
God, there's too many does. It's even written there.
He lives by the sea and by the Rosen. He is of Mar and of Rosen. He's from multiple families.
So it's basically a 3-minute video of the boys trying for buckets with strange objects like slinkies, steering wheels, foam fingers, eggplants, whatever they can chuck.
I actually call Danny Eggplant because that's what it looks like he's shooting when he shoots a basketball.
Well, the best part is they're making jokes, and it's like, oh, it's your favorite emoji, and he pulls out the eggplant.
If you would like fresh squeezed orange juice, just hand Danny a basket of oranges and tell him to shoot baskets because they will all slam so hard off the backboard that you will have juice just dripping down into the container of your choice. I want to see a guy shoot a slinky.
It was bad.
Wait, does it get caught over the side of the rim?
They couldn't even. It has such bad air resistance that it just couldn't even make it to the basket.
Yeah, you have to tie it
They
up.
eventually flew drones and were dropping them into the basket, and they were both just like, "We got to get drones, man."
Oh man, Mythbusters. I think Mythbusters needs to come back in the drone era because they would have so much fun with drones. Danny, were you a Mythbusters guy?
Oh yeah, no, I'm a big fan.
I think that Adam and Jamie would have so much fun with the easy access of drones and just dropping flaming things onto other non-flaming things. I think it would have been fantastic. All right, Tory, one more.
OKC, thinking they won with a buzzer beater, drops confetti, but then the shot's waved and the Mavs win. Chandler Parson tweets out, "Shout out to whoever dropped the confetti. #fired."
Well, they need the guy from Villanova, Ochefu, to get the broom out. Because in the national championship game, there was sweat on the floor. The boy wasn't cutting it, grabs the broom, mops up all the sweat. So he could have been there. He's available. Chefu's a graduated senior. He can get a job now at the arena sweeping up the confetti. So, bad job by them. This happens in football when they shoot off the cannons in Tampa whenever they score a touchdown.
Or
the guy
bring the
calls
marching
back.
band on.
Or the band is on the field. The band is on the field. That was a great moment. All right, well, thank you, Tory, for coming on. That's our show today. Thank you so much to Daniel Zarchi. You can find him on Twitter at GiantsPod. We're going to go record a Giants podcast in just a little bit, so that'll go up on iTunes. That's under Two Guys, a Glove, and a Coke Bottle, or Giants Pod. We'd like to thank all of our sponsors today, Fanatics.com, FansEdge.com, Wonderful Sports Merchandise Warehouse, 99 bottles here in Santa Cruz. Tory and I are going to go have a brew and argue over ginger beer again. And SeatGeek, our promo code SFG20, you get $20 rebate after your first purchase on this wonderful, wonderful ticket buying app that we could not be more in favor of. Danny, any parting words about your White Sox?
Go Giants.
Go Giants. All right, thank you so much, my man. This is Coach's Decision. I'm Thomas Todd. You're listening to KSCO 1080 AM, Santa Cruz, Salinas, Monterey.